Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at Dexter New Blood. So Dexter New Blood is a mini-series and a continuation of Dexter. I have videos on every single season of that show, so you can check that out if you want to first. And pretty much like all of those reviews, this one will be spoiler-free. Dexter New Blood takes place 10 years after the events of the final season of Dexter, and after faking his death all those years ago, Dexter is now living in the small town of Iron Lake, which is in New York. He's living a very peaceful and happy life. However, a string of incidents lead to the possibility of his dark passenger returning once again. So after the original ending of Dexter left a sour taste in pretty much everybody's mouths and damaged the overall legacy of the show, fans were left speculating for about 7 years whether or not we would ever see a continuation of this story. Over the years, Michael C. Hall said that he would definitely reprise the role of Dexter if a good enough story came along, and the idea for Dexter New Blood is something that he definitely liked. New Blood's announcement was made in October 2020, there would be 10 episodes, and Clyde Phillips, who was a showrunner for the first 4 seasons, would return. So now that Dexter New Blood has finished airing, I really wanted to make this review as soon as I possibly could, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's another great season of Dexter, and as an ending to his story, I thought it was brilliant. It wasn't perfect, but it did a lot of things right. So let's get into it. So firstly, I really enjoyed this new setting of Iron Lake. It's very different from Miami, but it just works, especially since Christmas is around the corner. Whereas Miami was known for its hot weather, its palm trees, and certain aspects of Latino culture, Iron Lake is almost the polar opposite. It's cold, it's snowy, and it's very small compared to Miami. And hunting is a very big deal. I also like the visual style of Dexter New Blood. It looks a lot more professional and a lot more cinematic compared to the original show. I also found the new title sequence to be impressive. If you're expecting something along the lines of the original show's title sequence, well, you're going to be disappointed. It's very brief, it's about 10 seconds or so. They have the title card, and with each subsequent episode, blood begins to fill up the words New Blood, followed by brief snippets of various scenes within the episodes, foreshadowing what's to come. Now let's look at Dexter himself. I really liked what they did with his character. He now lives under the name Jim Lindsay, which is a neat little nod to the author of the Dexter novels, Jeff Lindsay. He works as a clerk at a local gun store, and he's in a relationship with the town's police chief, Angela Bishop. And he's successfully been able to suppress his serial killer past over the last decade. The way that his dark passenger returned was interesting, and seeing him being sloppy in the early stages of the story was also a refreshing change of pace, given how good he generally was at this stuff all those years ago. I also liked the way that they brought back some other characters from the original series. For example, Deborah Morgan's back, and this time she's assuming a role similar to that of Harry, where she acts as Dexter's subconscious. If anybody was going to serve this purpose in Dexter's life at this point in time, I'm glad it was Deborah. It was nice to see her again, and Jennifer Carpenter gave a good performance. Dexter's son Harrison is back, and here he's a teenager who has arrived in Iron Lake to find Dexter. Dexter has to decide whether or not to tell Harrison the truth about his dark passenger and what happened to Rita all those years ago. Plus, I really enjoyed the father-son dynamic between the two of them. They do have certain things in common, but Harrison just wants to be normal, given everything he's been through. And the only way he feels normal is through the time he spends with Audrey, Angela Bishop's daughter, and her friends. John Lithgow also returned to reprise his role as the Trinity Killer in a very brief flashback sequence that was actually kinda creepy. It's very brief, and it's just a one-time thing, so some people might have been disappointed by it, but looking back on it, it's actually pretty cool. I also found some of the new characters to be likable. Firstly, there's Angela Bishop, Dexter's girlfriend, and the police chief of Iron Lake. You really buy into their relationship, but things don't go smoothly when a certain number of incidents occur throughout the season. There's also Sergeant Logan, who, while not on duty, serves as a wrestling coach for the high school that Harrison starts going to. There's Molly Park, a podcaster whose podcast is called Mary Kill. She's spoken about a lot of things like the Bay Harbor Butcher case, the Trinity Killer case, and so on. And she's here in Iron Lake to capitalize on the events that are unfolding throughout the season. Then we have the main antagonist, Kurt Caldwell, played by Clancy Brown, aka Mr. Krabs. Kurt owns his own diner in Iron Lake, and he's also a serial killer just like Dexter. He has a few parallels with the Trinity Killer, but he still feels very distinct in his own ways. His MO is very unique, and his motives and his backstory are all very interesting, and his purpose in the story has to do with something that happens to his son Matt. And out of all the villains that Dexter has had to contend with, in my opinion, Kurt Caldwell is the best villain in the show since Isaac Sarko. In fact, if I had to rank all of the villains from worst to best, it would go as follows. The Skinner, the Brain Surgeon, the Doomsday Killers, the Barrel Girl Group, Miguel, Lila, Kurt Caldwell, Isaac Sarko, the Trinity Killer, and the Ice Truck Killer. That's just my opinion. I wouldn't include Hannah on that list because personally I never saw her as a villain. So yeah, Kurt Caldwell, great villain, and great performance from Clancy Brown. Now when it comes to the violence, this season doesn't have too much of that, but not too little. It's just enough to the point where the brutality of Dexter's kills is still there. And then you have the finale. Now in my opinion, the send-off for Dexter is definitely going to stir up a lot of debates, arguments, and conversations over the next few months. Some people are gonna like it, and some people are gonna wish that the show had just ended the way it originally did. As for me, I found Dexter's send-off to be brilliant, and as an ending to the show as a whole, it's just right. Yes, there were a few missed opportunities and the pacing was a little bit uneven, but this was still a good choice nonetheless. If you're watching this and you've already seen Dexter New Blood, what did you think of the ending? Let me know in the comments. But for those of you who haven't watched it just yet, maybe stay away from the comments. Now, my first issue with Dexter New Blood is the slow burn aspect. It's only 10 episodes as opposed to the usual 12 you'd expect out of the original series, but some episodes were a bit too long or they just kind of meandered a little bit. Even the finale to some extent, you know, it's about an hour long and it kind of drags towards the middle. It just didn't have the amount of urgency that I expected out of it, given the shorter episode count. And there are some nitpicks as well. For example, there are plot points that are going to stretch plausibility a little bit. There's a subplot involving a billionaire who is often faced with protests from climate change activists and supporters, and it just kind of goes nowhere considering Audrey is among those protesters. But nonetheless, this was still a solid season. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Dexter New Blood. If you haven't checked it out, maybe do so. Or if you haven't watched the original show yet, maybe do that first and then come straight to this. And yeah, I think after all these years, I can gladly say that Dexter finally ended on a high note, the way it should have all those years ago. But that's just my opinion. We'll see what people have to say about it. So next time, I'm gonna rank all 9 seasons of Dexter. And then when that's done, you're gonna get a retrospective on the Scream franchise so far, specifically the first 4 movies. I've completed about 20% of it and there's still a lot of work to be done. So look forward to all of that very soon. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please be sure to like the video, share it and subscribe, hit the notification icon. Be safe during this time, and I'll see you soon.